We are live.
Okay, thank you so much. I think, do we have to wait for a couple of minutes for the participants?
Yeah, we can wait for a few moments.
Okay. Anyway, thanks so much because I first time getting into this type of streaming. Normally we use Teams only in DCS,
Yeah,
and I had to come into my personal laptop. So, thanks.
no problem, no problem.
Yeah, I can see my screen. Super. Okay, now. Yeah. Yeah, I can see my screen. Uh, to see the participants.
You can see it in in YouTube.
Oh yeah. I just switched it off. Otherwise, it was echoing back into this. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just
So
give me a nudge when ready to go.
yeah, sure.
That's so sad. Audio is okay, right? I'm on the speaker. That's okay, right?
Yeah, it's good. No problem. I think we can start. So it's 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know how many participants you have got. I'm not sure where to see that. So at least.
Yeah, it's fine. You can start.
Okay, cool. So thank you so much for this opportunity. In fact, after joining KMUG since more than I think 2 years, right? I used to come out for all the physical sessions and so on, but then we had a gap and things like that, right? So ever since I was thinking that I should also come and talk whatever small things I have done. So this is a good opportunity. Thank you so much. And really hope that we can all physically meet sometime soon. So with that, right, I would like to start. I'll just give an introduction of myself. I am Krishnakumar. I'm called as KK normally. I work for TCS for last 21 years or so. I'm all along Microsoft, and all along in my experience. So right from after college to VC to MFC libraries and VB6. So even when I started working in TCS, I was on the VB6 and Access and all that. Then from there to .NET and so on. Then I'm actually for a long period of time I was in the .NET Center of Excellence team in TCS. So for more than probably 14, 15 years. And then when this vertical concept started, I moved into the insurance vertical, and I was leading that .NET Center of Excellence. But life moves on, right? So I also changed roles here and there. Now I am actually in the cloud team for UK market for insurance. Again, Microsoft only predominantly. Um, Azure mainly, and then Microsoft applications and so on, and even some amount of Office 365, those type of things. So I just wanted to share some concept first with all of you, and then we will explain or we will discuss or jointly paint a solution diagram for that using Azure Stack. So that is what I am planning. This is, of course, a very black and white, PPT, which I put forward because that's all what is possible in this personal laptop. No colorful jazzy stuff, but we will try and do something towards after my explaining of this concept. That's what I have planned for you. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible and as engaging as possible. So let me start with the context, right? So garage, right? When we say garage, it is always something which we have a picture in our mind, right? So in only in India or in Kerala we have this concept of car porch, right, which is very attached to the house. But normally, if you go outside and all that, right, everybody will have a garage in their compound, right? It may be attached or maybe outside. So you have to come out of the main door into the courtyard, and then you have to enter the garage. That is how it is treated as that. And for them it is not only car parking, right? They will have all their tools and gardening equipments and all that, whatever they want to try, they will dump it there. That's what they use garages. So that, right, there is no connection with house, or they don't want to get their house dirty. That's a high level concept, right? So that is what is a brick and mortar garage. I think, pardon me, there's a spelling mistake here because I ported all these from my MS PPT into this. So it's a brick and mortar garage which you assume in our mind, which is attached to your main house, but it is within your compound, right? That's what it is on a physical garage. Now we'll think about a digital garage. This concept is very popular. I'm sure all of you have practiced this and using this pattern even in your companies and so on. Why this concept has picked up so drastically in this pandemic period is, especially in companies like us and even other large enterprises who work with very large customers also, who all had labs and garages physically earlier, right? Now the situation is that they are not able to access that physical, garage or labs anymore, right? So that is where this concept is very popular now. So basically, you want to get your hands dirty. Unlike your enterprise given laptop or desktop or server or whatever environment you have, which is actually driven by enterprise policies and a lot of restrictions, right? You cannot do all your things what you wanted there, right? Most of the things will not work. If I take my personal experience, or if I take my, you know. Office environment, if I say, that is not the place you can play around. You have very less access and a lot of monitoring is there. You cannot send in and send out things, etc. So that's why this innovation space is required now, right? So this is good for exploratory innovation work, and also some IPR related things if you want to do it without even creating that space across your customer projects or areas which are visible to others. You don't want to do it, so that is important, etc., etc. And hackathon, another thing is hackathon, right? So companies are now very frequently. I think everybody has a hackathon calendar in their whole year, right? So those kind of events also may need you a sandbox for your people to come and play around and things like that. So that's a concept, and actually now it has more applicability because now this physical co-working space concept also is not very going with through a very easy path because it is not accessible and a lot of pandemic restrictions there. So that is why now virtual co-working spaces have started coming, right? We are actually talking about a scenario where your whole workspace is getting reimagined. So all those things have a lot of relevance for this concept. So now we will just talk about what are the attributes of a brick and mortar garage and how it is related to us. Then we will try to equate that to how you will visualize or realize that using an Azure environment, right? That's what the second part which I am planning. So let's start with the garage concept. As I said, right, main house, and there will be attachment to that main house, or it will be within the compound. That's the main thing. And both these things will be owned by the house owner, obviously. House owner or the family who owns that property will have certain, will have certain principles laid or certain rules and regulations or decora to be maintained in that whole compound. Even if it is a worker or a stranger who comes in, they will decide where they want to take him and what he can do, right? That's the control what the family will have on that thing, right? So when I say family, you can think about an enterprise or whatever. But this garage is a place where they obviously want people to come and try things, and even they may invite some workers or whatever. They will try to get their hands dirty, right? You can imagine it's like a small workshop or a carpentry thing which is happening there and so on, right? That's what this garage is typically used for. Obviously it will have machines, tools and things like that. It will have some shelf type of a thing to keep your things there. You can imagine all these things which is attributed to a physical garage, right? And because it is within a compound, right, there will be a compound wall, so the security perimeter security aspect is always there. There will be a main gate through which only you want people to come in and go out, right? That main gate, there will be a security process where you have to check it in, your name will be written there, or you will be also monitored through a CCTV or whatever. Then you come enter into the campus or into the main courtyard. Then you have two ways to go, right? One is you can go to your main house or you can go to your garage, right? So again, if you want, you can have a garden fencing where you take the people all the way to the garage instead of going to the main house. So basically, there may be a small indoor gate which may prevent you to go into the main house, or naturally you will be taken to the garage. So all those things are rules defined, or that it is all the ownership of that family member, how you want to arrange your campus, right? And how you want to control or govern the movements of people within your garage, right? And then obviously, right, they are the people who will decide what work to give to them, what they can do, what they can not, what they cannot do, right? What all things they need access, right? For example, if they need some material which is within the main house, obviously they don't have access, right? They have to ask the house owner or the family to give that material to them, right? That these kind of things are natural in a day-to-day garage thing, right? And obviously every visit will be logged and recorded and all that, right? So that any point they can go to the CCTV or to this log and see what is happening, who has come, what they did, who has gone out and all that. That is also related to that. And there could be situations even when, right, there could this garage could be having a small attachment with the main house as well. So for example, right, you may have a small tunnel or a small connectivity between your main house and garage if you want, right? Or if you don't want, it can be attached, but generally it can be attached as well, so that the family people can actually come in, enter the main house and then go into the garage without going through the garden. So all these things are typical people movement which happens around us. And as I said, right, they will have repositories or shelves and all that which will be there. There will be a shelf full of tools. There will be a shelf given to you to keep the things which are producing there, be it be carpentry material or metals or whatever it is, so and so forth, right? And then there are certain rules defined by the family, right? They don't want any trespassers to come through any backyard or through the compound wall or something. Everybody has to be coming through the main gate. No materials can be taken in and out without their permission, right? Nobody can actually show some material from their garage to outside, because that is not permitted. It has to always go through the house owner, and then they will only expose those things to outside, right? Those kind of things are always laid by them, right? And just going through these points literally quickly, so we don't need to go line by line. And then of course, as I said, right, who will do what, who is the owner. And for example, right, in a garage, what happens is if you are trying to make a small right, a small cupboard or something, what happens is, right, there may be a chance that you will have to bring outside service as well. For example, some polishing guy you may have to bring in, right? So you may avail certain outside service also, apart from the machineries what you have in the garage. That scenario is very valid, right? That scenario is there. And also, right, your compound is always protected by a CCTV camera and so on, so that, right, you have a round the clock monitoring. Then also there could be standards and best practices laid by the people, right? So for example, if I am the owner of that particular house and the garage, I can say in my house I am only allowing ISO standard things to be bought, right? I don't want ISI, right? I don't want anything without ISI mark. So those are certain principles which I am laid. I'm laying for the whole operation of this whole thing, right? And then obviously I can say all the materials which are purchased as with certain brand and so on and so forth. All those things are there. There are even people who will now, because of especially in this pandemic, right? You should be even able to say, I don't want people from such and such areas to come into my garage also. So, for example, I can say, if this area TPR is more, I really don't want them to come in, right? So I can set such policies also nowadays, right? And also I can say, I don't want people to walk into my garage, right? I will send a small vehicle to them or a tunnel to them. They come into that so that they are not exposed to outside world. So all these things are there in the physical stuff, right, which we are seeing, and this is really happening in and around our house. Just that, right, these concepts are literally taken into a digital garage, right? If you see all these things which are written here, I mean, I have simply expanded what are the day-to-day things which happens in a house who has a in a garage where a small workshop or something like that is ran, and people coming in for work. They bring materials, they bring outside service. All that is happening. I'm just putting it like laying it as bullets so that I could compare how literally these things are implemented in a digital garage. That's the only thing why I'm spending little time on this, right? And obviously these things are auditable. I'm just making sure all those things are what I mentioned here are met, or I have put it in front of you. Just give me a second. Okay, governance. Yeah. Then there are so garage, right? There is another aspect of this type of garages, right? Even in our house, when you run a small work, right, you may create a small temporary shed as a garage for that 1 month or 2 months till your carpentry work is going on. After that, you dismantle it, right? Then, if you want, you will create it again. So this has to be very agile. It has to be automated. Obviously, you should be able to bring it up whenever you want, right? Same time, what you produce should be secured in some place. And if you are able to reproduce it quickly using some template approach, that's also well and good, because then you have that agility of bringing it up whenever you want, like just in time you can bring it up and then you can remove it, right? Those kind of things are also very important. Now now right, let's talk about a scenario where the same type of a garage you're trying to implement for let's say for your own research or your own POCs and those type of things within your enterprise. So now we are moving from brick and mortar to digital, right? So, so we have seen what is happening in a physical thing. Now we are going on to Azure. We are trying to now set up a digital garage for us within our enterprise compound, right? Within our enterprise, leveraging our enterprise Azure subscription, we are trying to set up a similar digital garage with all those features what we said, what we have in physical. So there also scenario is we will have to bring outside people, we have to buy outside service. We need separation of so in a garage there may be multiple type of work. There may be a team who is working on carpentry, there may be a team who is working on the painting side of it. We need their team members to be identified. We need isolation for them. We need them to come in through our main gate. They will be audited. All that we have to make sure. The same thing pretty much has to happen in a make sure, and same thing pretty much has to happen in a Azure garage as well. Now let's see that, right? So I will. My ambition is actually to try and draw a diagram, right, for our garage here, right? That's my ambition. Let me see how much I can be successful in that. Okay, my goal is to do that, so that, right, we together in this session in next 15-20 minutes we draw a garage architecture diagram using Azure, and we talk about what are those Azure components to be used, right? I think I have this PPT. I just created another version of this PPT with some drawing board here, right? So, so I'll come back to these points. Make sure I try to show you this in the diagram or touch base in the diagram, because if I now again go through these points, it will become boring for you, right? So this is what I am trying. Obviously, I cannot show you a Azure environment, which is my office environment and so on. But let's see this, right? Let's see how do we do this. Okay. So the starting point is right. Starting point is I have an enterprise subscription, right? Which is my family subscription, right? And I have a house within it, right? This is one problem we'll always face when we try to draw it. Okay, so I have my house, right? In a real scenario, I'll also tell you a little bit on that real scenario, but for the sake of explaining and giving you a little bit clarity around this. So in a real scenario, right, you all the companies today will have a small on-premise setup, right? That's where you are till this Azure, you are till this Azure or whatever came, right? So what happens is they will have a small Active Directory which is part of your house, and all of us when we are employed we are registered there, right? And what happens is now you have a company given tenant, right, which is the enterprise tenant of Azure, right? So that is actually Azure tenant, but these two mostly will be synced, right? So typically what happens is it will be a one-way sync. You will have the employees created always on your on-prem ID generally, and it will be one-way synced onto this. So for example, here addition deletion will not happen, it will be always synced from here to here, right? That's how normally it is. But for the sake of example, maybe we'll not worry about this. So you just imagine you have a compound wall like this, right, as I said, and this is your family house, right? And all your family members are actually registered in this is the starting point, right? That's where I started saying you have a main house, you have a compound wall. So this is an enterprise tenant, right? As you know, all tenant will have a AD associated with it. And here in this case, if you are part of an enterprise, that will be synced from your enterprise on-prem AD as well, right? That's a starting point. Now let us say when you have a compound, what happens? You should have a gate, obviously, because you want people to come in and go out. All these are very tall compound walls. You cannot go out of it. It's as big as a jail's compound wall or whatever, right? So this is the main gate. This main gate, the controlling point of this main gate is obviously here AD, because this is what actually authenticates a person who comes in and out of this gate. That's the first point, right? So if you really see, somebody coming through the internet to log in, right? I think there's a cloud diagram somewhere. Yeah, I'll just take this, right? So imagine this is a cloud, this is internet, right? So obviously people from outside come through this gate, through this channel into your main gate, and it will try to prompt for it will challenge you with a security. You have to enter that Azure AD security there, and it will allow you to log in, right? So what happens generally is this AD itself, right? The family has decided what type of security they want. So first of all, they will say you will have to have a multi-factor authentication. So obviously you will have to say and get a OTP or whatever. Prior to coming to the house, you have to inform the family, and they have to create an entry here, a gate pass sort of thing, and then you have to enter this, and your MFA have to be passed to enter this. Apart from that, right, what happens is, as I said, family also are very particular, and they have laid some rules as to whom or from where all locations they want people to come in. As I said, right, simple example is in pandemic period, they don't want people to come from a place where TPR is 30%, right? So they are very conscious of that also. So that is where they would have enabled conditional access policy for sure. So conditional access policy is another feature of Azure AD, like your MFA. So what happens is they have said that they want only people who comes from a such and such trusted zone of IP address. They want to come in and enter through our gate. So basically, they want only people coming from this region to come in, right? So this region, what it will be is a range of an enterprise IP address. So for example, in my case, I have to log into my office laptop, and then only if I hit portal.azure.com, it will get opened. Otherwise, if I try to hit portal.azure.com, and if I try to enter, right, if I try to enter from my general internet, it will say access denied, because when I'm trying to enter this AD credential, it will check and the conditional access policy will fail. So that is why it is very, very secure that way. So let's assume all these perimeter security aspect is what we are talking. So we allow only people of that nature and so on, right? They come in and they register, etc. We said. Now we are going to begin thinking about our garage, right? So obviously your house will be a very big. So this is a whole compound, and then you are trying to set up a shed or a garage type thing near your house. This is how it will be, right? And for the sake of example, I'll try to minimize this so that we get more space for garage, right? So this is our garage space. So the house owner has given this much space for you to play around, right? So this is our garage. Now, so we also, there are multiple ways of dividing a compound, as I said, right? You can have a garden fencing, you can have a real physical gate between your separating your main house and your this one. You can have all those things, whatever you want. So for example, right, your house will be here. You can have people to come go directly there, so you can navigate the people in whatever way you want, right? So in Azure, what we normally have is, so we have, imagine this is an enterprise tenant. We can either create a subscription separately for the garage. If you want, you can do that, right? I'll tell you why, what is the importance of creating subscription. And imagine if you want more and more garages, you can have multiple subscriptions created, and you can have a management group if you want, something like this around the subscription, so that the family can govern it using policies at this level, right? But for the example, let's forget about management group. We'll forget about multiple garages at this point. I'll again, because lack of space, I'll again try to expand this. So we'll assume it's a subscription, right? And family will define rules for them. Same rule has to be applied within their common, whether it in the house or whether here. So that's the general decor of the whole thing, right? So that's how they also run their family. So this is a subscription for us. We'll assume like that. Then within this, right? Let's imagine in this garage we are doing two type of things, right? One is we are trying to do some carpentry work, and the other thing is we are trying to do some painting work. So one option is they can do it whole here in this, right? And then they can actually create multiple resource group within the subscription, so that, right, it will be very separate. So it's as good as two rooms in our garage, right? This could be at a resource group level. And now once this, so which means everything what is done for carpentry is given here, everything what is done for the painting is given here, right? Now I'll just talk about a little bit about the security aspect, then we'll start about the networking aspect. So as I said, the carpenter has to come meet the house owner. He has to give the list of people who are coming to do the carpenter work. He will have to say who is their leader. Anyway, they will come to know. So those roles and the team details are given to this house owner. He creates all that in their AD, and then only they will be able to access, obviously. Likewise, these people also will come and give. Painters also will give the same thing. So which means in our Active Directory, we have to create those groups, right? Painting, carpentry. We have to also create some roles for them, whether they are administrators or normal users or contributor, whatever. There are many things there. We can do that. I also said family has laid some principles there, right? That is, these people cannot buy out something directly without informing them. These people cannot do something outside this garage, right? These people cannot work beyond 6 o'clock. Those kind of principles have to be laid. Now, in a digital environment, principles are not like manual, right? It has to be created. So we can either use it Azure Blueprint, or we can actually use Terraform or ARM scripts to create those policies. The policies can be created at this level, right? Can be created at subscription level, and it can be applied. So what happens is they will define the policy, they will apply at this level. As I said, if they have multiple subscriptions, they can create a management group and they can apply it there. So it will get rolled out to everyone. So simple thing is, right, in Azure, what we do is we will create some policies so that, right, even administrators may not be able to spin up some PaaS services like data workloads, etc. We will create some principles in such a way that whatever they create, it should have some 2-3 tags for it. So it's like the family has laid a rule that whatever you buy, you should get the bill and show it to me, right? Something like that. We can always also create some billing alerts, for example, right? At this level, and say if the resource group level consumption goes beyond it, they have to know about it. So those kind of things we can create. Even when I said tags, right? Tags are very important, very powerful. It is one of the best ways to get a very granular report on your Azure consumption and billing, right? It will also help you to identify your resources which are related to this. So, for example, right, we will set a policy at a high level that every resource created in our Azure subscription has to have 2 tags. One is the garage name, one is the activity name. So basically, I will say it's a garage, July garage. I will say activity name is carpentry, activity name is painting. So that, right, when I go to Azure billing and pull out a report, right, I will be able to pinpoint those resources which are used here, and that level of clarity you will be able to get, because that is important as your estate grows up. And I can also say, family would have said, right, you don't buy something directly from a retailer, you buy only from a this one. So similar example in Azure is, we can say you don't subscribe certain type of services. So for example, if you are creating a VM, don't try to create a VM with SDD, or don't try to create a premium storage. Those type of rules. And generally what people do is about the regions, right? Because they, in order to control the bill, they will say don't try to create services on that US region, or only try to create a service in a UK region because your customer is very particular. So on and so forth. So those things are all policies applied at this level, right? So once that is done, then only we can think of starting the garage. This is all plumbing work, right?
Krishnakumar, there is a question. What are the advantages slash need for creating garages?
Advantages of, sorry, the second word I didn't hear.
A need for creating garages.
Yes. So garages, actually, the need nowadays is more predominant because most of the companies have invested earlier till 2017 on physical garages and physical labs and demo stations and all that, right? Which you are not able to access. And also now work is much more exploratory, it is much more agile. So you want to bring up sandbox environments where you have full access to it. As I said, right, I cannot do all those research work which I have done in my garage. Like I cannot do that in my TCS machine because there is a lot of restrictions. I won't get admin access there. I cannot have download access there. You understand, right? So generally what we do is when we have an hackathon or when we have a research work, we create a garage environment. So even though we create a garage environment, we cannot simply create a VM and give it to somebody. It has to still obey to certain enterprise principles. So that is why I said, right? So that is why I said it's a very interesting thought. So that's why I said I can always run a garage here, right? There is no problem. I can directly go to an Azure subscription and buy something, and then a personal subscription. I can start doing some work. But so for example, here if I do, nobody will question, right? Only thing in our most of our enterprise laptops, direct Azure accounts are blocked, but still I can do it in my physical, in my personal environment or personal laptop. I can access that Azure. But then here it is not a governed thing, and if I do something here, I cannot obviously bring back to my enterprise. So that is why this is a high secure place. This is your house. You don't want strangers to come in. You don't want that place to get dirty. That's the principle, right? This is where your family lives. Same time, your research work, your maintenance work has to go on, which is why within your purview of things, you're trying to give another space. It is as secure as this. I would say similar and same difference you can understand, right? It's similar. It follows a lot of your family principles, but it is not as same as your family house. So that's the thing. So once I
Got
do
it.
this carpentry work, now I will delete it. I'll dismantle my compound is neat. There is no what do you call residue there after that. And I will set up again if I need another maintenance work. You understand, right? That is the
Got it.
concept.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, so it's a secured sandbox research space. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. Yeah, I know if it was interactive, I would have probably tried to make it also more interactive. I'm trying my best, so I hope it is making sense for
No
all of
problem.
you.
No problem. It's going good. Sure.
Yeah, thanks for that. So as I said, we have done the security compound walling. We did family principles. We have created as Azure policies. You can either use Blueprint or you can use Terraform or you can various ways of creating it. Right? There are even sample IRMs available. You can customize it for it. You have to decide what principles all you have to create so that everybody follows the same. That's the difference between roles and these policies, right? And you can enforce policies through roles also, but policies are generally created at a higher level. That's the thing, right? Okay, so now the physical, now we are getting into really start setting up the garage for the before we start the work. So as I said, this is a resource, this is a subscription, this is a resource group. Now I'm going to start the work for the carpentry work first, right? Then only I will do the painting later. So the carpentry guys are going to come. So before that, I need to do some wiring there. I have to create a network wiring and all that. I have to set up the machines for them. Couple of drillers and other things are required, right? And obviously, I have given him the permission to come tomorrow morning onwards. So he has his user ID password. All that is there. And I have made sure the contractor only brings people from this region where TPR is less. That is the realization we have, right? So now the network part. So network part, we when we are going to lay down, right? So now we will first do create the VNet part for it, right? So virtual network. I mean, I don't think we need to discuss around that. So it's a virtual network which will cover the whole of this carpentry garage, right? And what happens is I will need 2 3 machines here. So obviously these all have to be hooked into it. So what I am going to do is I will not directly hook all these things into it. I have to create some subnets, right? So for example, right, I'll create certain subnets within this. But even before getting to the virtual machine, I want to explain you something. So now I'll go back to this access point again, right? So I said people from this region comes, they show their Azure ID card here, they are able to come in. So we are talking here about two types of access into our garage. One is access to our Azure portal, right? So you are given permission to certain portal resources in your Azure, right? The moment you get access to this gate, you will get access to that Azure portal. The second thing is how will you access your machine itself, right? So those two things are there. Just keep that in mind. So first, when you come into Azure, right, this route is enough. As I said, from this region, it will come and it will they will be able to get into the Azure portal, which is if you are given access here, you will be able to get the Azure portal access and into the subscription because we are giving them access to subscription. We can also restrict them to access only this resource group. So you imagine they are able to access this resource group. Now let us say I create a drilling machine into this subnet, right? So imagine there are two types of subnet here. One is all drilling machines, and this is all some smoothing machine or something. So there are five machines here, five machines here. Two subnet is there within this VNet, right? Now imagine if I just allow these machines, right, to have a public IP just like that, right? What will happen? People will be able to hit it directly from here. So the people will start coming even outside directly without following my compound wall principle, and they can access like this, which is not at all allowable, right? RDP is allowed, but then we cannot allow people to come directly like this. So that is where first what we will do is we have to create a small front end web VNet here, right? So what happens is this front end VNet will have the ability to go outside our gate. So basically, it's like a front office for our garage, carpentry garage, because this VNet we will put a NSG rule in such a way that this VNet can have an outbound, can have outside access, right? Now, how this VNet will be able to access outside? Either we can put a dump machine here, right? If I'm just putting one machine, so either we can. I'm not I thought of giving some colors and all that, but then I don't want to waste that time in. So I will just try to give some color if possible. Yeah, so I will try to give either a jump box, like a jump box is nothing but a VM, either a Linux VM or a Windows VM. Linux means more than two people can access as well. I have to put some landing area here, and then I have to allow them through this. So basically, this VNet will have a rule saying that outside traffic is allowed, right? Whereas my inside VNet will have a NSG that it all the outbound traffic and inbound traffic from outside is not allowed at all. It's all restricted. Only thing is that it will allow access from this VNet. So from the front end VNet only, I will accept the traffic to come in. So which means it will enforce that people have to come through this route always. So basically, they have to come like this, right? They have to come through the gate and come like this. Now, generally, what we do is this is an IaaS model jump box concept where you create a landing machine and all that. Generally, what we do is we use a Bastion-host service. So Bastion-host service, the advantage is that internally it may be a machine or whatever, but it's a PaaS service from Microsoft, and they will take care of that landing security and all those things. And the good thing is you will be able to access it via browser. So it's as good as remotely logging into a machine from here. So you come through this internet, through this gate, and this is the Bastion channel, which is nothing but a HTTPS service, PaaS service given by Microsoft. So you will be able to remotely log in, and then you can hit your real machine what is sitting here. You got it right. So the guy actually come in through the front gate. So imagine this garage as a small front office where you'll have to sanitize his hand and all that, and then some check is performed. If you compare with our pandemic world, temperature check is passed and then he comes in to the subnet to access his smoothing or drilling machine to start the work. This is what actually we do generally, right? It's totally secure. So people cannot directly jump out from here, or they cannot access from outside machines, directly personal machines and all that, right? That's number one. The number two thing is, as I said, inbound, outbound rules are set and energies are set so that, right, only from here to here it is allowed and so on and so forth, right? So what happens is within the subnet, the machines will be able to access each other. Even within the VNet also, we can allow machines to access each other. Sometimes, right, what happens is even for a carpentry work, you will have two contractors, right? So that is why this type of thing is set up so that there is a small separation between them itself, and all that separation of teams etc has to be registered here. So that is how we give the access. So for example, if a driller comes, we know that he is part of the painter group and he is part of his role is driller, so that we give access to only that set of resources, or within the subnet we can put a resource group and we can only access those kind of things to do the work. And we also, and as I said, right, we may have to bring in outside services to achieve our work, right? We may have to bring outside things to, let's say, some lamination have to be performed, all those things. So you can imagine equivalent in our scenario is PaaS services. So let us say I want to create a PaaS service for this particular functionality. So what I can do is, if I have the access, I can go and create it. Or if family has not set the permission for me to create the spin up access, I can't do it. But let's assume I am able to do it. So in that, right, also we will set a policy in such a way that PaaS services cannot be created with internet access, right? That's a very important point, because when you create a PaaS service, every service, web app or even data services, even SQL Server, everything, right? You will get two options. One option is you, whether you want to expose that to internet or whether you want to expose that to a VNet. So for example, if you expose a web app to internet, what happens? Even though it is inside this, you're straight away exposing it outside, right? It's as good as showing your work outside through the compound wall to some stranger, which the family is not interested to do, right? So basically, you're not allowed to do this, right? Because they don't want to strangers to see this. So what happens is it will be again bound to this only. So basically, you are attaching to your VNet so that this pass service, even though it is a SQL pass, you have accessibility only from here, which means somebody have to come all the way like this to access this SQL server sitting in this particular garage. That's the beauty of this, right? So that you are absolutely not exposing anything outside. Because in enterprises, right, you are not supposed to expose websites and all outside straight away. I can simply create a VM, create a public IP, put it here. If I have a public IP and if the NSG allows port 80, your website can be exposed and somebody can access it straight away from here like this, right? Which is a security flaw. Then, it is not generally allowed. So that is how even PaaS services are stitched always to your VNet and so on in this garage. So everything is fully secured here, right? Now I'll just go back and just make sure some points are covered in the next 10 minutes. Now, as I said, right, family has also set some standards for buying, right? ISI mark and all those things, right? It's very important. And also family has to produce some reports for getting the KSCB approval and other things, right? That's what happens in a physical garage. It is required in a digital garage also in a professional environment. So I'll just tell you that. So in a company which is governed by CIS standards, right? What happens is you will not be able to do anything, or you are not supposed to create a machine without CIS benchmarking, which means if you create a Windows machine straight away from Azure Gallery, right? That's not a CIS image, because I mean, you can select extensions like Defender and all that, but still a lot of CIS security standards have to be met for enterprises to be compliant. In fact, there is a security center in Azure which you can enable on your resources. For example, you can enable security center at this level and it will give you a report as well. What are the CIS gaps you have? So generally what we recommend, or what the family has enforced here, is we have to go to a marketplace and always ensure our machines are CIS marketplace images have to be used. So we always use Windows CIS images. Of course, there are some differences in the way we script it out and all, but that is the ideal way of doing it. And as I said, right, once you do all this setup, you need to get approval from our municipality or whatever. Just imagine like that. Even for enterprises, we have security team, and we need the go ahead before we really start doing any coding in this. So for that, what we generally do is we first run a security center. In security center in Azure, right? You can just enable it, and it will give you a. It will run across your this one, and it will give you a nice report. It will give you the corrective measures. All that is given, and you can create a report out of it. We also use sometimes some tools like CIS Lite, which is free, and it gives you the CIS related things there. That is number one. So the advantage is that, right, that report you have to produce to these people, and they will give the approval. The report has a lot of valuable inputs. So for example, if you have created a VM, right, just like a VM, if you created at this level, etc., which has more attack surface, right, or which are more closer to your outside gate, there's a good chance that there could be a big leakage in through that itself. So when we buy Azure, when we get a normal Azure VM, right, you can enable Defender, etc. But then, unless you make sure that the Defender, your updates are regular, your VMs are not fully secured, right? So what actually has to happen is you have to create an automation account in Azure. You have to ensure that this patches are regularly updated on the VM. Then only it will be always compliant. Otherwise, right, next time when you run this tool, it may show an income a non-compliance there. You understand what I'm saying, right? So these kind of checks are done for us, and it will give you a good amount of points there. Then we also said we need storages, right? We need shelves for these garages, right? So what happens is we can create storage accounts, right? Storage accounts, again, we can create within resource group or within our subscription. We generally create within the resource group, but if there are shared storage accounts, we have to create it outside, right? I'm not talking about the storage accounts which are created during the VM creation. That's a different one. That's for the base image hosting and all that. I'm talking about application related storage accounts, right? It will be generally here within your subscription or within a resource group. Even for that, we have lot of CIS, security standards governed by this, Azure Security Wizard. So things like internet exposure has to be switched off. It has to be pointed to the VNet, so that, right, you can access that only from here. So many things we can set there as well, and the security aspect of that is also very important, because that may have your data, and straight away it can be a cause of concern, right? Because if you don't attach it like this, straight away it is easy to come from outside. So whatever security you have done, it will actually get jeopardized, right? So if you run the security wizard, a lot of check is done on the VM as well as on this storage. So what happens now is, right, now you had the garage, you did a lot of work. Now what is the say storage account and all that is part of the garage, right? So let's say after your work you dismantle it, you will literally lose everything, right? Now how will you persist it, right? That's the thing. And persisting means we are not allowing anybody to go outside of this, right? You're not allowing anybody to go outside of this, which means you are not allowed to take the code outside into a general GitHub or something, right? So that we generally create a Azure DevOps environment, which is actually outside our premise, but we can link this Azure DevOps to our AD, right? And we can also link this Azure DevOps to our subscription as well, so that in effect, even though it is this like this physically, right? Even though it is like this physically, it you actually will feel that it is like this, because, right, you are actually tying into that security. You are also tying it to your subscription. So actually it is this. So we generally allow or ask people to check in everything into this Azure repository. In the Azure repository, we only make sure of one thing: we have a policy which will prevent people from selecting public repository. So there are options of public and private. We only allow them private, right? And we enforce Azure DevOps security here. There also we can set roles and principles as well, right? So we only allow the team lead to create a new repo and those type of things are there. I'm not getting to that, right? I want to explain one more concept in this garage itself so that, right, we'll wind up like that. So as I said, right, I'll just go back here, right? So now I said I have a lot of machines sitting at this level. I have subnets, couple of subnets, I have VNets and all that, right? So imagine I have 10 machines. Why? Let's say 20 workers are coming. I have given them access to 10 Windows Server machines, each Windows Server machine having two people each, right? So what happens is, right, I want to ensure that these machines are also driven by some policies, right? I want to ensure that they have controlled access on this, right? I can give them the team lead admin rights, but I don't want all of them to come and use that and download and everything. So those kind of restrictions that I want. And I also don't want them to access internet directly, because if I allow them to access internet directly, what happens? Whatever I did again will go for a toss, right? Because they will be able to send emails in an uncontrolled manner. They can expose things outside. They can bring in things from outside without this gate, etc. Then I always want things to come like this, right? So what happen? What I normally do is, for the internet outbound inbound, to centralize that activity, what I generally do is I may install something like a squid proxy on a common machine, right? But even before all that, I wanted to tell you about the group policy concept which I want to apply on these machines. I think this is not a new thing in Azure. We always have done this in our enterprise. All our machines are tied to a domain controller, and it has a group policy which is pushed from there, right? Or GP edit and those type of things. Same thing we can do in Azure also. So one option is we can have a ADDS component which is running for this particular garage. If you want, we can set up that way so that it will inherit those users and roles from here. ADDS also has a domain controller aspect of it, so that, right, we can domain join all these machines into that, right? So when you are actually logging in, you're actually logging into a domain which is created within that service, so that, right, your policies can be pushed from the domain controller. So in the domain controller, you can set various policies, right? All these machines, only the administrators can be part of the administrator group of these machines. So literally what you do in that domain control ADDS is, in fact, you can create the ADDS at this level. You can then create OUs, organization units. One can be this OU, one can be this OU. And in this OU, you can apply these roles as their principals. So in terms of who can do what, or you can actually apply for this OU in terms of the painters roles and restrictions. And then you can push policy to these machines in such a way that their rights on the machine are governed by those roles. So for example, who has admin roles only can actually do installation and things like that on this machine. That's one way of doing it. The other way, the one more example of that group policy is, I can say none of these machines should directly have direct internet. Direct internet is blocked, and they should not be able to edit the proxy setting. And I will push a policy to all these machines saying that you access through my squid, which is sitting at this level. So imagine this is squid, and if I have a proxy sitting here, I want all of them to go through it, right? So this also is possible. Now,
Krishnakumar, I have got one question.
yeah,
So you told like you'll be putting the source code, all those things to Azure DevOps, right?
yes,
But what about if I'm provisioning, say, I'm provisioning a set of VMs and I'm putting a load balancer, all those things, and I'm putting one application. So, like, I want to store the that ARM scripts.
yes,
How do you do that? Are you doing that, or every time I had to say I'm trying with the production when I'm trying to simulate some issues or some scenarios,
okay,
so
okay.
I have to provision multiple VMs or something like that. So every
Yes, yes,
time I
that's
have to create that, that's a pain, right?
Yeah, that's the last point I wanted to say. So, as I said, right, agility is important, and we have scripts for it. I'll just pause for a second. Is that okay if I just
Yeah,
explain
sure,
this?
sure, 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 sure,
Yes,
sure.
yes, I'll take that question. That's the last point. I will conclude with that. So, as I said, right, all the traffic goes through this proxy. These are all controlled by a ADDS policy created at this level. So, family has even enforced policies at this level, how you can access what, how you can access the outside things, right? That's what I wanted to say. In some cases, in our case, right, we don't have access to create ADDS or sub ADs within our enterprise account. That is set by again our parent company. In that case, what we used to do is we are creating a IaaS model, infrastructure as service model VM, and we enable domain controller and AD roles for that VM. We use that as an infra service model, domain controller, and we domain join all these machines into that, right? So when you enable a machine as a DC role, right, it will give you a domain. It actually gives a domain, and you will be able to add your machines into it. So when you create a VM, normally it will be in a work group, but if you have the admin access, you can actually then go and add these machines into the domain controller. So the advantage is you can push policies from the central level, like don't access internet directly, go always through proxy. All those things are directly pushed from there, and the proxy settings, all those things. And as I said, right, even the Squid, it's an open source proxy. So even the Squid we actually install on the domain controller machine itself, so that right anyway it is there, and it's also secured CAS all certified and all that, right, and it doesn't have outside exposure to internet and all that, right? So it's absolutely secure, because even the domain controller actually sits here. There is absolutely no direct access for it. You have to always access that like this, right? So it doesn't have an outside exposure. And to this controller, we actually hook this subnet and VNets and those VMs to it. This is what we actually do. So that way, our machines, activities, everything is fully hooked. Now, so having done all these things, right, you will be able to happily perform your things. So your admin can literally help your team members to install whatever you want. You can perform whatever you want. You complete the POC, and then you think about how will I persist my work, and how will I recreate my work. That's the thing which Anuraj was asking. I'll just try to explain that. So once everything is done, or do while doing the work, right, you have to ensure your things have to be checked in somewhere, which is what I said. We actually create a so as you know, right, if, we can actually have Azure DevOps account. Free account gives still 5 users. So we can create a private repo in it. We can link the Azure DevOps in using our own AD, so that right your authentication works with this. So even though it is outside our org, it actually appears like this. You can also what you call set roles and things like that, so that right the same type of hierarchical approach will be followed in this as well, right? So now, so code wise, yes, persisting you can do it in Azure DevOps. That's not a problem, right? And in fact, Azure DevOps portal generally we allow only from here. That's one problem, okay? Because Azure DevOps portal also from an enterprise point of view, if you try to enter Azure DevOps and enter my enterprise TCS user ID password, they won't allow it. It is allowed from here, but you can have an override access through the Azure command line, because they are allowing, so that right we are able to access the code, etc. here. So finally, all your garage work is done. It actually comes and checks into this, right? So it is all here in this. Now what happens? You don't need to maintain this garage. It's overhead, right? It's sitting near your compound. It's ugly and all that. So you suddenly, not suddenly, so you can remove this, right? And with an assumption that you can suddenly create it again when you want. So that's the agility thing we should always have when it's a cloud environment, right? So that is where the whole thing can be scripted. So if you have Terraform, that's the best. Otherwise, you can create a chained ARM. ARM, the thing is you have to chain it up. It's a little cumbersome work because you have to chain that in such an order that the ARM works. So that ARM can be created. It can be then as and when you want, you can regenerate the whole thing, right? In terms of machine sometime we may have, it is a difficulty to create such similar machine with all the software installed, etc. So in that cases, what we do is we actually create images out of it and put it in an image gallery. So image gallery is also like a persistent thing we maintain in our enterprise, right? Account. So image gallery have all our standard images. So what happens is when you try to create a garage, we first create the subscription. We bring that image gallery into the subscription, and then from here we run the script and create the machine. So imagine if your machine had need to have 10 software, etc. We would have anyway baked that into the AMI or the image, right? So from there it gets created. Now, what Anuraj was asking is, so where will you store this ARM template, right? So ARM template, because anyway this is gone, the whole thing is gone. So basically, what we are doing is we have the templates and we actually work on Terraform scripts. So those things are actually stored in the Azure DevOps repo only. And what we do is we actually log in using Azure CLI and then bring that Terraform script from the what we call Azure DevOps repo, and then we run it through the CLI, and then we create it. That's what we are actually doing, and so it is all stored in the what you call Azure DevOps. And we have done a lot of work with respect to that Terraform script, because Terraform as such itself, it's cumbersome, but then we have created a lot of manifest file and configurability and all that. So once we get the Terraform from the Azure DevOps into our machine where we have the CLI, we actually have to do some manual work to change the manifest file, and then we run it from there. That's what we are doing. So first we run the commands for creating the resource group and the subscription, and all the subscription we do manually, but all the resource group networking, everything, then we have for the machine. Then we have for the extensions like the domain controller and all those things that we are doing. And little bit step on the domain controller is manual, because that policy setting and the squid configuration on that is little manual, but we are trying to automate that also using the PowerShell and all that. So it's all Windows scripting once you come into that domain controller thing. But otherwise, at the Azure level, we pretty much have all these things lined up. And we earlier were using blueprints for creating the policies. Now we are actually creating that using the Terraform itself. So I don't know whether I answered the question properly, but this is what we do. Okay.
Yes,
Um,
yes, okay, got it.
Yes, yes. So what I mean to say is, right, you can imagine this not only for your enterprise scenario, but you think about it even for a college or for a community social cause, all that we can do actually. So if you have a Azure account for Kochi, right, we can actually run a makers village type thing actually by creating something like this. You can completely create a virtual co-working space using this, like our co-working space in Info Park and all, completely secured. You have total auditing. We can give delegate access and permissions and policies to these companies so that they can. So it will be like this, right? This level there will be many, right? This level will be more and more and more, wherein there will be a controlling office and all that, right? Or if you want, you can even have Bastion host at this level so that they can have separate gates like this, right? So instead of they coming through a common gate like an enterprise, there are two enterprises, you can actually have things like that, right? This also is possible because Bastion host is at a subscription level, right? So one company can be like this, one company can be like this, so on and so forth. Then we only lay certain common goals and this thing. And if you have proper tagging and billing alerts and all those policies set, we can have monthly billing for this company for their infra, monthly for this, so on and so forth, right? And it could be a security thing, and we can have ADDS at this level, we can have a parent AD, all those things we can model. I mean, different combinations are possible. So this is what I wanted to cover. I don't know how much it made sense. I mean, I hope it was useful. I just wanted to share some of my thoughts. And this is not the end of it. Okay. I mean, in fact, in my last slide, I wanted to cover that there is so much more possible, right? Because the workplace itself is totally reimagined now. So now, if you simply give a bare metal garage like this, nobody will like it. We can even give them a lot of tool sets. So, for example, let's say whoever uses this garage will also get access to a list of APIs or list of some code generators and all that in our Azure DevOps repo. They can access it free of use. All that will actually improve their productivity as well, right? The other thing is, even when you give like this, right, you can even improve their experience on the garage much more. Let's say whoever come set up a company like this, right, they also get up a O365 account straight away. Their email domain is set up, their OneDrive is set up. They can we can even get a list of power apps with some chatbots and all that for query resolution, all that. So they can get the company up and running very quickly. That's what I mean. And when, especially when you are running a business, right, you need a data loss protection. DLP endpoints are required. All that is part of O365, right? You can have your Azure AIP, ATP, all that, right? And you can bring all this into a report in Azure monitor or in a PBI. A lot of things are possible. In fact, one point I missed while talking is the monitoring. As I said, right, it's always CCTV monitored, right? So once we set up a garage, all your activity logs will be created in Azure. We can configure activity logs. Monitors can be configured for applications. Only thing is VM level activity logging is little difficult other than our typical event viewer. Otherwise, all that monitoring is possible. Just because of the logs and other things are available, auditing is also possible, right? You can actually create query type thing on these logs, and you can create nice reports on Power BI. In fact, I worked on it with a customer using that thing, right? Customer actually have all these reports coming into log analytics streams, and we actually there is a query language, right? Using that, you can actually use Power BI and nicely dashboards and all that you can create. Who did what, whether any violations or breaches happened. So I can go on and talk, and we can make this garage more rich and functional and all that, right? It's a business model by itself, and please believe me, a lot of money people are making with this, right? People have bought apartments and furnished and as co-working spaces, and now they are not getting business. That's not the way probably to go. This is the way to go for SMBs especially. So with that, I would like to conclude. I don't want to occupy your time on a weekend. So thank you so much for this opportunity. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, Krishnakumar. Currently, there is no questions as far as uh, nothing in the chat box. So thank you for spending some time creating a slide, spending some knowledge to us. Thank you. I'm ending broadcast. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.